The Associated Press says that the U.S. Justice Department has been secretly monitoring them for over 2 months. During that time, the DOJ collected telephone records of reporters and editors at the AP. The Associated Press called this, quote, a massive and unprecedented intrusion into how news organizations gather the news. The government would not say why it sought those records, however. But U.S. officials have previously said in public testimony that the U.S. attorney in Washington is conducting a criminal investigation into who may have leaked information contained in an AP report on a failed terror plot.
Now, there are many scandals that the Obama administration is dealing with right now. And of course, this huge Department of Justice scandal is getting a little bit of attention when you compare it to the amount of attention Benghazi is getting. But I think that this is a really fascinating story because it's a case where, for the first time, the mainstream media is getting a little taste of what American civilians have been dealing with since 9/11. You have the government spying on you, and it turns out the AP doesn't like it so much, Dave.
Yeah, well, to loosely quote Ben Franklin, those who give up freedom for security deserve neither, and this is the most obvious case of that. And of course, the media is now upset because it's their phones. You know, the Department of Justice already has said they can go into our emails and our Facebook messages and our Twitter DMs. I mean, they already can do that, and yet we don't talk about that. That didn't cause an uproar, which is far greater in terms of security issues and personal privacy and all that kind of stuff. It is great that the media is finally on board with this, and that's why the AP, the president of the AP, his email, the public email that he sent out after this was so, it was over the top in its anger, actually, because they want this to get to critical mass. And yes, we may think Obama is a good guy, but they cannot get away with this kind of stuff.
No, and look, especially when it comes to civil liberties, foreign policy, Obama has not been a great guy. And I think that the mainstream media has failed at being critical of him. I know that on our own show, on the Young Turks, when we're overly critical of Obama, a lot of our supporters are like, no, you can't do that. You can't criticize the Democratic Party. Yes, you can. You're supposed to hold your politicians accountable regardless of which political party they're affiliated with. But in this case, I mean, even though I think that the Associated Press is being hypocritical in not criticizing the Obama administration for doing warrantless wiretaps like the Bush administration did, I do see this as a huge problem because of the fact that it destroys freedom of the press. And it also basically intimidates whistleblowers. What do you think, Max?
Yeah, no, I think that it's totally messed up. You know, I think the press needs to sort of feel like they're operating, you know, with free license to report on what they want and when they want, and they should definitely be able to be critical of the government. And I think that, like, you know, as an intimidation tactic, that, you know, this is going to really sort of work to sway them, you know, in a different direction.
Well, it definitely has a chilling effect,
Yeah.
Not only for the press themselves to know that they are in very real danger of having their sources, all of their investigations, everything that they're doing is a way of, oh, look, they're going to look over here, so let's try to stop them at the pass here. That's something that the government can do, but especially for the whistleblowers in the government, because that is primarily the way that we get information about what is happening and really happening in the government. You know, we're not China. We don't live by what comes out on the press release. Right. We actually try to find out what's happening behind the scenes, what's really going on with these people. And this is the real problem. This is a very serious deal.
Yeah, it really is, especially when you consider the treatment of Julian Assange and how desperately the U.S. wants to prosecute him. You know, it's just, it's all about intimidation, if you ask me. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Dave.
well, this isn't about whether you think government is fundamentally good or bad, you know, because the idea of this, of course, you want, if there's some sort of security issue where we want to stop Al-Qaeda from doing something and we have to figure out where it came from. So on its face, that sounds like, oh, well, that's very legit. Then the government should know about that. But once you open that door, it's a Pandora's box of what the government can and can't be listening to and why they can and can't. And unfortunately, people are so uneducated that it does. The debate about this never gets to that level of what power really is. That's what we're really talking about here, is power and who should challenge it and why.
And also, I think a scary thing about this is that, you know, most of this will likely, it seems on first read, of course we're still finding out a lot about what's actually going on, but a lot of it seems like it might actually be legal. what they did, because the powers are so broad that the Bush administration and now the Obama administration, the powers are so broad that they have claimed for themselves that we actually may not find that these have any kind of illegality at all. Now, does appear to be something that they may have violated their own regulations when it comes to the subpoenas for telephone records. You know, they're supposed to notify the media company unless, of course, it would compromise the investigation. Very broad. And also, they're supposed to keep it as narrowly drawn as possible. And I think that we can look at, you know, regardless of what the government's justification for this subpoena was, that we can look at it and say, yeah, this was a wide dragnet that they passed through here. That should definitely be a violation of the regulation to make it narrowly drawn.
I see this as the destruction of democracy, because we're supposed to have a system of checks and balances, and the media is supposed to play a role in that system. They're supposed to hold politicians accountable. And if the government has such broad power and has the ability to intimidate the media in this type of way, that destroys the power of the media, and it's a disaster. Now, Dave, do you see this as a turning point when it comes to the violation of privacy? Now that the Associated Press has been attacked in this way, do you think that they're going to start pushing for more protections for privacy?
Yeah, I think we've had two moments with Obama that have sort of turned things. First was the Rand Paul drone filibuster. That really got the libertarians to go, oh, maybe something's not right here. And now this, and because, as I said earlier, because this is about the media, if they love one thing, it's the media. We're all the media, so I say that with a grain of salt. I say that with a grain of salt. You save someone at a buffet, so
There you go.
But yeah, the media will not let something happen directly to them. This is fine. I mean, you can see it very clearly on Twitter. Everybody that works at BuzzFeed and Politico and they're all on this for the first time. They've let everything slide with Obama, but finally they found a cause that they're all going to rally behind. And I think it's a great thing.